In the quiet corner of Willowbrook Park, mornings always began with a burst of cheerful sound and color. The trees, tall and grand, shimmered in the breeze as bluebirds sang harmonies from branch to branch. A family of squirrels darted between maple trunks, while dragonflies zipped and hovered just above the glistening surface of Bluebell Pond. Tiny minnows splashed near the shallows, catching the golden rays of sunlight that filtered through the leaves. It was a bright, lively place. Everyone had somewhere to be and something to do. Well, almost everyone. In a cozy nest nestled inside the hollow of an old oak tree, one very sleepy duckling still snoozed soundly. Her name was Daisy. Daisy's nest was warm and soft, padded with dandelion fluff and moss. On sunny days like this one, she didn't need to worry about the weather. But when it rained, the thick oak kept her dry and snug. The branches swayed gently in the breeze and rustled like a lullaby. This was Daisy's home, and she loved it. Daisy adored long summer days. The sunshine meant she had plenty of time for exploring, floating, playing tag in the grass, or collecting interesting leaves to race in the stream. She imagined herself becoming the best worm finder in the whole park, or inventing a new game that all the ducklings would love. But there was a problem. Daisy just loved to sleep. She loved sleeping more than she loved swimming, more than she loved playing, even more than eating crunchy beetles. Every morning, while the rest of the pond's creatures were stretching and chirping and splashing, Daisy was still curled into a soft ball, dreaming of soaring above the clouds or sliding down a rainbow. When she did manage to open her eyes, it was always slowly, one lid at a time. She'd wobble her way out of her nest and into the bright morning air, blinking at the light like it was too much for her. Just 5 more minutes, she'd mumble to no one in particular, hoping to sneak in a tiny nap under a mushroom or behind a log. Afternoons weren't much better. Daisy could fall asleep anywhere, in the grass, on a lily pad, even in the middle of a game of follow the leader. One time she dozed off while chewing a crunchy fly, and only woke up when her friend Ruby laughed so hard she snorted. It wasn't that Daisy didn't like playing or spending time with her friends. She did. She really did. She just couldn't seem to stay awake long enough to enjoy everything. And even though her friends never seemed to mind, Daisy did. She wished she could find a way to stay awake all day long like everyone else. Evenings were Daisy's favorite. That was when she and her family gathered together near the water's edge, nibbling on bugs and telling stories. The sun dipped low and warm colors painted the sky. Then, one by one, they'd waddle back to the oak tree and tuck in for the night. That night, Daisy dreamed she was flying higher than the park trees, higher than the clouds where stars twinkled like tiny night lanterns and frogs croaked lullabies from the moon. It was one of her best dreams yet. As the soft glow of morning peeked over the hills of Willowbrook, Daisy awoke with a small, happy quack. Today would be different, she thought. Today she would stay awake. She stretched her wings wide, gave her feathers a little shake, and looked out of her cozy nest. The sun was already shining brightly, and the breeze smelled like honeysuckle and warm earth. Birds zipped past the tree, and chipmunks squeaked as they chased each other through the grass. Down below the Bluebell Pond was a flurry of activity. Daisy saw her friends already splashing and swimming. The frog choir was croaking from their favorite log. Even a couple of tall cranes were dipping their beaks into the water, searching for breakfast. "I can do this," Daisy whispered to herself, puffing out her chest and stepping carefully onto the branch outside her nest. The sunlight warmed her fluffy yellow feathers as she took her first big step of the day. Her tummy gave a little grumble. First breakfast. She waddled through the tall grass until she spotted a juicy earthworm wriggling near the roots of a sunflower. With a quick scoop of her bill, she slurped it up. Breakfast of champions. Her stomach full and her spirits high, Daisy continued her stroll toward the pond. The sky above her was bright and blue, like someone had poured the entire ocean into it. White clouds drifted lazily, looking like scoops of whipped cream. Everything shimmered with the promise of a beautiful day. As she neared the edge of the pond, Daisy spotted her friends gathered in a little circle on a soft patch of grass. "Hey, Daisy," called a duckling named Max, waving a wing. "Come sit with us," said another, a cheerful duckling named Bella. Daisy quacked a happy hello and waddled over. "We're sharing our special talents," Max explained. "You know, things we're really good at." "Ooh," Daisy said, blinking in the sunlight. "Can I join?" "Of course," Bella chirped. One by one, the ducklings went around the circle. Max showed off his speedy swimming, slicing through the pond like a little boat. Bella flapped her wings and hovered just above the ground for a few seconds. She just learned to fly. Another duckling proudly shared how she could sniff out the juiciest bugs hidden under the grass. Daisy blinked again. The warm sun on her feathers felt so nice. The grass was soft under her feet. She thought about snacks, then naps. Then, just as it was her turn to speak, she yawned and yawned again. Then, before she could say a word, Daisy fell fast asleep, right there in the circle. With a soft plop, she curled into a fluffy ball and let her dreams take her away. She dreamed that she was floating across the pond on a giant lily pad, wearing a crown made of daisies. A frog in a tuxedo was playing piano, while butterflies danced around her. Then, ribbit! A loud croak shattered the air. Daisy startled awake and looked around with wide, sleepy eyes. The circle was empty. Her friends were already in the water, splashing and playing. "Oh no," Daisy murmured. "Not again." She waddled slowly down to the pond's edge, feeling shy and a little sad. She'd promised herself she'd stay awake today. She wanted to join in, to play and laugh and be part of the fun. As she reached the group, Max turned and smiled. "Hey, sleepyhead." "I'm sorry," Daisy said quietly. "I didn't mean to fall asleep." Her friends gathered around her, gentle and kind. "It's okay," Bella said. "That's your superpower." "My, what?" "Your talent," said Max. "You're the best sleeper in the whole park." Daisy blinked. "Really?" "Totally," said another duckling. "You nap like a pro. You even napped in the middle of a conversation. That takes skill." Daisy giggled. She'd never thought of it like that. Maybe it was special. After all, dreams were kind of like adventures. And she was very good at dreaming. "I guess I am good at sleeping," she said with a proud little quack. The ducklings cheered, and Daisy felt her feathers puff with joy. That evening, as the sun set over Willowbrook and the sky turned golden, Daisy sat with her family near the oak tree. They nibbled on beetles and worms and shared their stories from the day. When Daisy's tummy was full and her eyes began to droop, she waddled back up to her nest. The air smelled like lilacs and soft moss. She snuggled into her cozy bed, tucked her bill beneath her wing, and smiled. She had tried her best. She had learned something new. And most of all, she was proud to be exactly who she was. With the stars twinkling above and the sound of frogs singing below, Daisy drifted off to sleep, dreaming once more of magical skies, floating lilies, and new adventures waiting just over the next sunrise. The next morning in Willowbrook Park was as lovely as ever. A warm breeze rustled the leaves of the tall oak trees. The sky blushed with early sunshine, and the dragonflies were already performing loops above Bluebell Pond. The frogs began their morning chorus, singing from their lily pads in perfectly off-key harmony. But inside a certain nest, one little duckling was not yet part of the action. Daisy was dreaming again. In her dream, she was the captain of a cloud ship, sailing across the sky with a crew of sleepy turtles and moon mice. The stars lit their way, and every puff of wind carried her higher above the trees. She would have stayed there all morning if it weren't for the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Daisy's eyes fluttered open. Standing outside her nest was Ruby the raccoon, one of her best friends in the whole park. "Daisy," Ruby whispered loudly, "are you up?" Daisy sat up, yawning so wide her bill trembled. "I am now," she mumbled. Ruby's striped tail twitched with excitement. "Come on, we're going on an adventure." Daisy blinked. "What kind of adventure?" "The best kind," Ruby said. "We're going to the Berry Hill." Now Berry Hill was on the far side of Willowbrook Park. It was a magical place where wild strawberries, blueberries, and blackberries grew so big and sweet that even the bees hummed a lullaby when they tasted them. "But I've never been that far," Daisy said, fluffing her feathers nervously. "That's why it'll be an adventure." Ruby grinned. "Max and Bella are already waiting by the log bridge." Daisy peeked out of her nest. The sunlight sparkled on the pond. Her friends were going exploring. She wanted to go too. So she stretched, yawned again, and waddled down to join them. As she reached the water's edge, she saw Max balancing on a log, wings stretched for balance, while Bella practiced short hops with her tiny wings. Ruby helped Daisy cross, and together they stepped into the tall meadow grass beyond the pond. Jasper scampered down the tree. "It won't be the same without you." Daisy gave her wings a gentle shake. She didn't want to miss out. Not again. "All right," she said, standing up. "I'll come, but only if there's a roof." "There's a great roof," Jasper called back from below. "A huge maple leaf." Down on the ground, the park smelled like rain and earth and green things. The grass was slick with dew, and puddles dotted the paths like little mirrors. Daisy waddled over to the clearing near the big lilac bush, where Bella and Max were already hard at work. Ruby had even dragged over a few smooth stones to make a path. "Welcome to Fort Snugglebug," Bella announced. Daisy giggled. The fort was built between two thick bushes. Big maple and magnolia leaves made up the walls and roof, and inside, the floor was covered with dry moss and soft bark. "It's amazing," she said, stepping inside. The inside of the fort was perfect. It was dry, cozy, and smelled like wet leaves and cinnamon bark. The rain tickled the roof, but didn't come through. Daisy felt like she was in a secret world. "Let's tell stories," Max said, settling into the moss. Ruby agreed. "Scary ones, about the swamp behind the frog rocks." Daisy's eyes went wide. She wasn't sure she liked scary stories, especially on rainy days, but she didn't want to be left out. Max began. "Once upon a time on the other side of Willowbrook Pond, where the fog never clears and the frogs croak backwards." "What does that even mean?" Daisy interrupted, giggling nervously. "Shh," Ruby whispered. That's part of the mystery. Daisy huddled close to her friends. As the story continued, she leaned against Bella, feeling her eyes start to flutter. The moss was so soft, the rain so gentle. And just like that, zzz, Daisy's out again, Ruby whispered. I don't know how she does it, Max said. That story had a werefrog. But no one was upset. They smiled and tucked a leaf blanket around her. Inside her dream, Daisy found herself deep in the foggy swamp Max had described. But it wasn't scary at all. It was magical. The fog swirled in shapes of animals. The frogs wore tiny hats. Fireflies floated around like glowing snowflakes. She followed a glowing path that led to a pond made of starlight. A large toad with a golden crown bowed to her. Welcome, Queen of Dreams, he said. Daisy curtsied with her fluffy little tail and giggled in her sleep. When she woke up, the rain had stopped. Sunlight peeked through the clouds and a soft breeze stirred the fort. Her friends were still there, chatting and giggling. Daisy sat up, rubbing her eyes. Did I miss the whole story? Almost, Max said. But don't worry. We're going to write another one. Together, Ruby added. Daisy's cheeks turned pink beneath her feathers. Thanks, guys, she said quietly. For always, including me, even when I'm sleeping. That's what friends are for, Bella said, nuzzling her side. The ducklings and their friends spent the rest of the afternoon decorating the fort. They added shiny pebbles, tied wildflowers to the walls, and even made a little flag from a leaf and a stick. By the time the sun started to dip, Fort Snugglebug looked like something out of a fairy tale. I wish we could sleep here, Max said, lying on his back. Maybe one day, Daisy said with a dreamy smile. That evening, Daisy waddled back up to her nest, her feet still damp from puddles, her belly full from berry snacks Jasper had hidden in the fort. As she curled up, she felt proud. Today she had joined the fun, helped build something amazing, and even added her own dream to the day's story, even if she'd been asleep for part of it. Queen of Dreams, she whispered to herself with a giggle. And as the stars blinked to life above Willowbrook Park, Daisy closed her eyes again, already dreaming of her next adventure. The next morning arrived with a burst of color. Sunshine spilled over the treetops like golden syrup, and the air was filled with the hum of bees and the whisper of grass stretching toward the sky. It was the kind of morning that practically danced, full of life, laughter, and the promise of something new. But in her nest, Daisy the duckling was having a very strange dream. She was on stage. Not just any stage, either. A big one, with velvet curtains and sparkly lights. The audience was packed. Frogs in bow ties, owls wearing opera glasses, and even a fox or two balancing popcorn on their noses. Ladies and gentle creatures, a voice boomed, presenting the sleepy, the snuggly, the queen of catnaps, Daisy the dreamer. Spotlights swirled, and Daisy blinked in surprise. Wait, what am I supposed to do? She whispered. Dance, a frog shouted. Sing, cheered a squirrel. Sleep, hollered a raccoon. She looked down and saw she was wearing a fluffy tutu and slippers made from soft clover. Oh dear, she said. Just then the curtain blew open, and Daisy woke up. The world on the other side felt bigger, wilder. A gentle hum buzzed from the bees dancing over flowers. Crickets chirped from under rocks. Butterflies zigzagged like living confetti. Follow me, Max quacked, leading the way through a narrow path. The ducklings and Ruby made their way up a gentle slope. Daisy panted a little. She wasn't used to climbing hills, but she didn't complain. She wanted to keep up. Every now and then she'd stop to sniff a daisy or peek under a mushroom. The world was full of wonder. After what felt like forever, and at least 3 daydreams about clouds shaped like pancakes, they reached the top of Berry Hill, and it was beautiful. Bushes burst with color, blueberries like tiny sapphires, strawberries blushing in the sun, and blackberries so plump they practically glowed. Bees buzzed lazily, full and friendly. A warm breeze carried the scent of ripe fruit, and it made Daisy's feathers feel light. "Oh, wow," she whispered. Her friends didn't waste a second. Max dove into a patch of blackberries, coming out with juice-stained feathers. Bella was already nibbling on a strawberry the size of her head. Ruby gathered a pawful and offered them around. Daisy picked a blueberry and popped it into her beak. Sweet, juicy, perfect. For a while they all sat in the sun, full and happy, their bellies round with berries. "This is the best morning ever," said Max, lying back on the grass. "I wish we could stay here all day," Bella sighed. But Daisy blinked slowly. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, her belly full. Oh. She yawned. Then she yawned again. And before she could say a word, Daisy curled up next to a patch of clover and fell fast asleep. Ruby giggled. There she goes again. The ducklings built a little pillow for Daisy from soft grass and leaves. "We'll let her rest," Bella whispered. "She's had a big morning." And Daisy, she dreamed again. In her dream, she was riding on the back of a giant berry bee, zooming over the hill, her wings outstretched. Below her, the bushes sparkled like treasure. Her friends waved from the ground. And in the dream, Daisy laughed, soaring high above Willowbrook. When she finally opened her eyes, the sun was a little lower in the sky. Her friends were playing a game of berry toss nearby. "Daisy," Ruby called. "You're up." Daisy stretched. "I didn't mean to fall asleep," she said shyly. Max grinned. "You always say that." "But we don't mind," Bella added. "You're just being you." Daisy smiled. Being herself didn't seem like such a bad thing after all. As the group packed up to return home, they made a plan. They'd come back next week and maybe even bring a picnic. "I'll try to stay awake next time," Daisy said. "We like you either way," Ruby told her. As they crossed back over the log bridge and returned to their part of the park, the sky turned golden once again. Another day had come and gone. That evening, Daisy sat with her family by the water's edge, telling them all about Berry Hill and the big juicy blueberries. Her feathers were stained purple, and her eyes sparkled with joy. When bedtime came, she snuggled back into her oak tree nest, the smell of wild berries still on her bill. She let her eyes drift shut, her wings wrapped around her like a hug. And as the moon rose over Willowbrook Park, Daisy the dreamer drifted off again, this time dreaming of new adventures, ones she might live or sleep through. Either way, she knew one thing for sure. She was exactly where she was meant to be. The next day began with the sound of raindrops, not the loud, scary kind that clattered like coins on rooftops. No, this was a soft, cozy rain, the kind that pitter-pattered gently on leaves and turned the air into a cool, minty mist. Willowbrook Park looked different in the rain, quieter, sleepier, like the whole world had put on a soft gray sweater. And up in her oak tree nest, Daisy the duckling was in heaven. She stretched her little legs and gave a long, slow yawn. The inside of her nest was dry and warm. Raindrops tapped above her like a lullaby. She snuggled deeper into her feathers, completely content. Today was going to be a perfect day for staying in bed. But just as she was about to close her eyes again, there came a knock on the side of her tree. "Daisy," a voice called. "It's me." It was Jasper, the young squirrel who lived a few branches above her. Daisy poked her head out of the nest, blinking at the misty sky. "Hi, Jasper," she said sleepily. "We're building a fort," he said. "A rain fort." What?" "A fort made from branches and big leaves," Jasper chattered. "It's going to be the coziest hideout ever. You have to come help." Daisy tilted her head. Building a rainy day fort did sound kind of fun, maybe even adventurous. But her feathers were so warm, and the nest was so soft. "I don't know," she mumbled. She sat up in her nest, feathers ruffled and beak wide with a yawn. Outside, the sounds of Willowbrook Park were bright and happy. A woodpecker was tapping out a rhythm on a hollow tree, and the frogs were doing their usual morning stretching, which mostly involved long-legged hops and lots of croaking. Daisy peeked out of her nest and saw Bella and Ruby waiting by the tree's roots. "Daisy," Bella called, "are you ready?" "Ready for what?" Daisy asked sleepily. "For Talent Day, don't you remember?" Ruby grinned. "We're all meeting at the sunny stump to show what we're best at." "Oh, right," Daisy said, blinking. Talent Day. She fluffed her feathers nervously. What was her talent? She couldn't jump high like Max. She couldn't balance on tiny branches like Jasper. And she definitely couldn't hoot like Ollie the Owl, who was planning to sing a duet with a cricket. Still, Daisy didn't want to miss out. "I'll be there," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. By the time she waddled over to the sunny stump, a wide old tree stump in the middle of a sunny clearing, a whole crowd of animals had gathered. Birds, bugs, bunnies, and more sat in little circles, chattering with excitement. Jasper the squirrel somersaulted across the grass. Max swam through a puddle backwards. Bella showed off her leaf-spinning dance. Even Shy Pip the possum played a soft tune on a blade of grass, cheeks puffed with effort. Everyone clapped and cheered for one another. The stump echoed with laughter and applause. Then Ruby stepped up. "Okay, everyone, our last performer of the day. Daisy." Daisy gulped. She stepped up to the stump, her little webbed feet wobbling. She looked out at all the friendly faces watching her, their eyes kind and expectant. She opened her beak, then paused, then blinked, and before anyone could say a word, plop, Daisy curled up on the stump and fell fast asleep. Right there, in front of everyone. A gentle breeze rustled through the grass. The crowd blinked in surprise. Then someone giggled. Then someone else. And before long, the whole clearing was filled with soft, warm laughter. "She did say she's the queen of catnaps," Max chuckled. Ruby nodded proudly. "That's her gift." Jasper grinned. "It's not every duckling who can nap anywhere, even on a stage." One by one, the animals quietly tiptoed closer. They placed soft petals around Daisy, like a crown. A beetle rolled over a smooth pebble for her pillow. A frog gently fanned her with a leaf. "She's not just good at sleeping," Bella whispered. "She dreams big, and she brings peace wherever she rests." Just then, Daisy stirred. She blinked up at the sky, confused for a moment. "Did I fall asleep?" Everyone clapped. "You were wonderful," Ruby cried. "That was the coziest performance of the day." Daisy sat up, cheeks warm with embarrassment and pride. "I didn't mean to," she said with a shy smile. "But you did it perfectly," said Pip, "and we all loved it." Daisy looked around at her friends and felt something soft and warm. Not just her feathers, but something inside. She was proud. She had shared her true self, and it had been enough. More than enough. "Maybe next year I'll sing a lullaby," she quacked. "We'd love that," said Max. That evening, Daisy returned to her nest with a full heart and tired wings. The sky turned a soft shade of pink as the sun sank behind the hills. Fireflies blinked awake in the grass below. As she snuggled into her nest, Daisy whispered to herself, "Talent Day might be my favorite day ever." And as her eyes closed and dreams tiptoed in, she thought about her friends, their cheers, their laughter, and the gentle truth she had learned. The world needs dreamers too. It had been a week since Talent Day in Willowbrook Park, and the animals were still talking about Daisy's performance. They called it the nap herd round the park. Daisy, of course, was a little embarrassed at first, but every time someone mentioned how peaceful she looked or how cozy the moment had felt, she smiled a little bigger. She was starting to see herself in a whole new way. That week, something changed. She still loved to sleep. Of course she did. Dreaming was her favorite kind of adventure. But now, Daisy also made time for new things. She started joining her friends in small ways, even if she couldn't stay awake for everything. One sunny morning, she joined Max and Bella for a short swim across the pond. She paddled slowly, with little splashes, giggling when the lily pads tickled her belly. In the afternoon, she helped Ruby collect shiny pebbles for a new game they called puddle checkers. She only dozed off once, and Ruby let her dream while the game paused. And some evenings, Daisy told bedtime stories to her younger siblings, spinning tales about dancing frogs, flying bees, and stars that whispered lullabies. "Where do you get your stories from?" her littlest brother asked one night.